All right, NBA Finals is now over. We have the Boston Celtics offseason article is up on ESPN.com. Team 29, the Boston Celtics. We will have the Golden State Warriors offseason article up on Saturday. That article is already written. Ironically, this Celtics article was written when this team went down 3-2 to Milwaukee. And we've been sitting on it, similar to what happened last year with the Bucks, but unfortunately they did not win a championship in Boston. We've been sitting on it for about a month, and we've tweaked it a little bit here, but it's a great year. I know this is probably not how Celtic fans and people in that organization wanted it to end. You're up 2-1, and I'm not going to go through this series as far as what happened. Certainly turnovers, blown opportunities. And when you're up 2-1 at home, to go up 3-1 and you get beat by a team that experience showed in Golden State here, and who had the best player on the court here. And I thought Jason Tatum got really tired throughout this series here, and I think it's going to be a learning curve for a lot of these players in Boston, with Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and Robert Williams, who battled, and Al Horford. But it was a great year considering where this Celtics team was in January. What people were calling for Brown and Tatum to be broken up. That certainly is not going to happen when you have two players in the prime of their career here. So basically, it's kind of like, where does this team go forward? And the big question that I posed in the offseason article, there's two things. The first one is, how much is ownership going to spend, or is there going to be an opportunity to spend? There has to be an opportunity there because this roster is intact. This is a luxury tax team. I think you have one free agent out of this group. You got a bunch of 4 or 5 players on non-guaranteed contracts, but your starting 5 is back. Your bench is back with Derek White and Pritchard and Grant Williams. That group here, you have a second-round pick. But as I said, you are in the luxury tax, but you've got some big trade exceptions. So is ownership willing to authorize to go out and use your $17 million trade exception that might cost you an extra $50 million? To use your, I believe, your 9 and change trade exception, or your $6 million trade exception. That's going to be the question as far as when this team goes into the offseason, because I think when you look at it, there's some things that need to be cleaned up. I think you need a backup point guard. I think you need a playmaking point guard. I think Marcus Smart is a he's certainly your starters, but I think you need a point guard to come off your bench and kind of just set the table here. I don't think this roster has it. I think Peyton Pritchard is certainly an undersized scoring guard. I think you need a wing defender out there, another wing to come off the bench, because you don't have that, a big wing. Certainly everyone is looking for that. Your bigs with Horford, Williams, Robert Williams, Grant Williams. I think you probably need another backup center just based on the health of Robert Williams here. So when you remove the trade exceptions, you're basically staring at the $6.4 million tax mid-level exception here. So that's going to be the big thing, right? As far as how much does ownership want to spend. The Horford contract, it's 26.5, 19.5 of it's guaranteed. He's not going anywhere. You're not going to waive him and stretch it. Al Horford will be back next year. That would be, certainly foolish as far as what, to do something like that. So the tax, that's the big thing. This roster is back. How much does ownership want to spend? The other big thing is Jaylen Brown. He's extension eligible starting in October. There's no way in hell Jaylen Brown is signing an extension in Boston. And because of it, it's not because of he doesn't want to be there. It's basically because he basically would take about $100 million haircut. Remember, Brown signed a non-max extension, back in, I guess that was 2020. Excuse me, I think it was 2019. He signed that extension. He's eligible for an additional 3 more seasons to add on. He's got 2 years left going into this offseason. Basically, it's he signed at 4 for 107. Got a bunch of incentives in there. Starting on October 1st, you can sign a 3-year, $111 million extension, potentially go to 123. That ain't happening. I'm sorry if I'm advising Jaylen Brown. That ain't happening. It's about $6 million in the first year, less than what the max would be, and it's about $120 million in total as far as from what another extension or when he goes into free agency. Plus, if he earned all NBA, he would be supermax extension eligible next offseason, and there's no way in heck that Jaylen Brown is going to do that. So we wrote about it. Boston was pretty much plain Jane as far as, so we're like scrambling as far as for things to write about here. So we write about the Jaylen Brown extension that he is not going to sign here, but it kind of lays out as far as why. We talked about the luxury tax. Horford certainly is not going to go anywhere right now. They're projected to pay about a $12 million tax penalty. 17.1, 9.7, 6.9. Those are your trade exceptions. You are not going to be allowed to use those in a sign-and trade because of the hard cap apron. You're already over the apron, but you haven't triggered the hard cap. So those do not apply for players as free agents in a sign-and trade unless you clear a lot of salary, and I don't see that happening. That is basically for trades for players that are under contract here, as well as your $6.4 million tax mid-level exception. You've got 14 players under contract. We talked about Horford. Nick Stauskas is non-guaranteed. Malik Fitz is non-guaranteed. Sam Hauser's got a team option. Juwan Morgan's got a team option. Your lone free agent is Luke Cornett. Both your two-way guys are free agents here. So you're $7.5 million over the tax threshold. You got 14 players. You've got those trade exceptions, as I talked about in the article here. Your team needs certainly scoring wing off the bench, playmaking backup point guard, front court depth, and your resources are you got a second-round pick. You got all your future ones starting in 2023. We talked about the exceptions. You got cash to do. The dates basically apply to all your non-guaranteed guys. So all in all, big picture. I know people don't want to hear big picture right now. It was a great year in Boston. And this team should be the favorite when we get into the offseason, when we get into training camp as far as the team to come out of the Eastern Conference. I know Milwaukee, if Chris Middleton gets healthy. We don't know what happens in Brooklyn, Philly, Toronto, Chicago, Miami certainly will be up there. A lot of wild cards out there. But this Boston team is built to win a championship. It's going to depend on it, if there's going to be more additional costs as far as what ownership is willing to go to in the front office here. And but this roster is sustainable. You got two players in Brown and Tatum who are under 26 years old in the prime of their career. That, yes, they have to get better. They have to get better. There's a difference between, as you saw, what a championship level team is and how hard it is to kind of get that level here. And I think the Warriors proved that. But as I said, all in all, a terrific season in Boston.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.